You're in the middle of a conversation. Someone just told you their name. You smiled, nodded, and 3 seconds later, it's gone. Completely. Like it was never there. And now you're standing here, talking to this person, laughing at the right moments, asking the right questions, and somewhere behind all of that, there's a quiet panic running on a loop. What was their name? What was their name? What was their name? You've been here before, more times than you'd like to admit. And the worst part isn't the forgetting. The worst part is the performance that follows. The way you start steering every sentence to avoid the moment of exposure. You say hey instead of their name. You say you a lot. You get suddenly urgently interested in your phone the moment you'd have to introduce them to someone else. For months now, maybe longer, you've called this a quirk. You tell people, I'm terrible with names, and you say it with a little laugh like it's charming. But underneath that laugh is something quieter, something that doesn't feel charming at all. Because you've tried the tricks. Repeat the name 3 times, associated with something visual, use it in your first sentence back. You did all of that. Maybe it worked for a week, maybe 2, and then life got loud again and the system collapsed and you were back to nodding and smiling and quietly panicking. And so the questions started, softly at first, then louder. Why can't I just remember? And underneath that question, a darker one. What does it say about me that I can't? That you're not present enough, not caring enough, not there enough. That while everyone else is simply living their lives, you are somehow always half absent, half somewhere else, missing things that should be easy. You've been carrying that for a while now. That quiet suspicion that something in you just doesn't work the way it does in other people. But here is what nobody told you. That suspicion isn't the truth. It's a symptom. Your brain isn't broken. It's busy, and it's busy with something you never consciously chose to give it. Picture 2 people walking into the same room. Same party, same people, same noise level. The first person walks in already composing themselves, already deciding what expression to wear, already running a background check. How do I look? Who's watching? What do they think of me? Is this going okay? By the time someone extends a hand and says their name, that person's brain is at capacity. The name enters, and there's nowhere for it to land. The second person walks in curious, not performing, not monitoring, just watching the room like it's genuinely interesting. When someone says their name, it lands because there's space for it. Same party, same people, completely different internal experience. Which one are you? You already know the answer. You've always been the first person, and it goes deeper than parties. Here's where it started. Not last year, not in college, earlier. At some point, and you didn't choose this, you learned that social situations required a certain kind of internal monitoring. Reading the room wasn't a skill for you, it was a necessity. Tracking how someone felt about you, whether the temperature in the conversation was shifting, whether you were too much or not enough, that became automatic. A background process running constantly, consuming resources, keeping you safe. Nobody taught you to do this. Nobody sat you down and said, always watch yourself in social situations. You adapted without realizing it. And adaptation is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It just becomes the default. And here's the part that nobody explains. When your brain is running a constant self-monitoring process, it isn't doing that alongside being present. It's doing it instead of being present. Attention isn't infinite. What goes inward doesn't go outward, and the name, the person standing in front of you, gets processed as secondary. Not because you don't care, but because something deeper in you decided a long time ago that how this interaction goes is more urgent than what this person is. It felt normal because it was familiar, because familiar and safe are the same word to the part of your brain that runs these processes. But familiar isn't the same as true. Here's what changes everything. Forgetting names is not a memory problem. Read that again. It's not a memory problem. You can remember song lyrics from 15 years ago. You can remember exactly what someone said to you in an argument 3 years back. Your memory works.
What's happening with names is something entirely else. It's an attention problem, and not the kind of attention problem that means you're scattered or lazy or disciplined, the kind that means your attention has been trained over years without your knowledge or consent to flow in a very specific direction, inward, towards self-monitoring, towards management, towards the performance of social competence rather than the experience of one. And this is where it gets uncomfortable.
Because if you're honest, the self-monitoring doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like care. It feels like being a considerate person, like trying hard to get things right. And in some ways it is. The same sensitivity that makes you track the room so carefully is probably the same sensitivity that makes you a thoughtful friend, a perceptive colleague, someone people come to when they need to feel understood. But there's a cost. The cost is this. You are so busy managing how the interaction lands that you never fully arrive in it. You're there, but you're watching yourself be there. And those are not the same thing. There are two principles underneath all of this, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. The first, attention goes where it's been trained to go, not where you tell it to. Most people believe focus is a choice, a matter of willpower. Try harder, pay more attention, repeat the name more times, and it'll stick. But attention is more like a river than a flashlight. It follows channels carved by years of experience. If you spent years in environments where self-monitoring kept you safe, your attention carved a deep channel inward. And rivers don't change course just because you want them to. Trying harder doesn't redirect the river. It just exhausts you. And you've been exhausted by this for long enough. The reframe isn't try harder, it's understand the channel. Because the moment you see where your attention actually goes and why, something shifts. Not dramatically, but permanently. Awareness doesn't require effort the way willpower does. It just requires honesty. The second principle is harder to hear. Self-monitoring and genuine connection cannot fully coexist. Most people who struggle with names are deeply empathetic. They care, sometimes painfully, about how other people feel. And that caring looks like connection from the outside, but from the inside, your inside, it's actually something closer to its opposite. It's the performance of connection rather than connection itself. The management of an interaction rather than the experience of one. Real connection requires a specific kind of vulnerability. It requires letting the other person exist more vividly in your awareness than your own self-image does, for just a few minutes. It requires loosening the monitoring. And for someone who built self-monitoring as a form of survival, loosening it, even slightly, even in a low-stakes conversation, can feel quietly physiologically wrong. Not dramatic, not conscious, just uncomfortable in a way that's hard to name. So the brain pulls attention back inward, keeps monitoring, keeps managing, and the name and the person attached to it never fully lands. You're not forgetting names because you don't care about people. You're forgetting names because you care too much about what they think of you. And that is a completely different problem, with a completely different solution. Here's the truth that's hard to sit with. The self-monitoring, the vigilance, the management, the constant internal performance review, it doesn't feel like a cage, it feels like competence. It feels like you. And that's exactly what makes it so difficult to question. Because you don't notice the things you're not experiencing. You don't notice the names that don't land. You don't notice the moments you're half absent from. You just notice the gap afterward, the empty space where the name should be, the vague sense that you were there but not quite in it. And here's the projection worth sitting with. 5 years from now, if nothing shifts, you'll still be steering sentences, still saying, hey, still managing the moment of exposure with a laugh and a shrug and I'm terrible with names. And you'll have 5 more years of quiet evidence that something in you just doesn't work right. 5 more years of watching other people seem to arrive effortlessly in rooms you're still only visiting. The pattern doesn't break by accident.
It breaks when you see it clearly enough that pretending you don't becomes impossible. So now you're standing at a fork. One path is familiar. You keep calling it a quirk. You keep managing it. You keep being the person who monitors the room from inside their own head, while the room itself, the people in it, the names, the actual texture of being somewhere with someone, passes slightly out of reach. It's not a bad life. It's just a smaller one than you're capable of. The other path is uncertain. It asks you to get curious instead of critical, not about your memory, about your attention, about what it would mean to let someone exist more fully in your awareness than your own self-image does for just a few minutes, about what presence actually feels like when you're not spending it on yourself. It's uncomfortable in the specific way that new things are uncomfortable, not dangerous, just unfamiliar. And unfamiliar is something your brain has been confusing with dangerous for a long time. What are you going to keep believing about why you forget? Your mind isn't the problem, it's the pattern.